Hey, go stand over there. Okay. I just want to get some idea. Are you going to be presenting from here? Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see if we can hear you. Yeah. Okay. Huh? Good. I think we're about good to go.
I'll be a volunteer. I don't mind. I need It's really nice. It's like they take a throw in functions, that's why I think I understand that. I'm saying that you kind of convert it a little bit. It doesn't make sense if I can't register to I haven't done anything else. I will get in. I have a bunch of this way, I don't have the music playing, but this way I don't have Yeah, that's why I'm going to do the do everything. No, that's fine.
Do the search and rescue. Do the search and rescue. It's a joke. You know, like, do you do requests?
That's all right.
Yeah, we're about good to go. Cool, very cool. Getting into the swing of things.
We just got some new reps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one from Carlos. Windows manager.
Oh, good. They do Windows there. No, there's growth. There's. The mic is loud. But that's good. Yeah, I assume they can use. Somebody takes on. I understand that. I'm getting I'm here because I'm sure that's right here. He's a little bit unusual. It's number 7 out. I'm sure a lot of people They're using Python It's not me. I'm just going to wonder how the stream is going. But I probably test it. Hey, yes. It's okay. We're about to get started. Hey, glad you guys can make it. Grab this. Actually, get some chow. We'll start in 3 minutes. There's pretzels. It's mostly breaded stuff. Good thing Randall's not here. The snacks are. Hey, did you bring it? Hey man, get some chow and grab the cereal real quick. We're gonna get started.
I'm not even put one on top. You have to do something to counter. That's why they put that 3 little one on the back. These other ones go over the he's the guy.
Huh?
All those multiple. It's just. Right. I know you're talking about this. Yeah, I know. Trying to make night right now. You know what? How many are doing this? I'm waiting for agency and the cause of type. Like I said, NSC will be flying. It's like ships.
So,
That's the level I know. Yeah, because the basic thing, these club companies have to be big.
can you hear me? Can you hear me talking now? My concern is, everybody's talking now. Just let me know how it sounds. If I need to find a better, if he's going to be here, if I need to. If you can,
I have a team.
But if you want to look at your. Well, yeah, that's ideally that's what I want to do. But if you need it to do stuff. Yeah, I'm just going to move it back here. Well, actually, the frame is pretty wide, so I think closer is probably better.
I'm okay. I'm not that good looking.
Yeah. Oh, I see what happened. All right, that ought to work. You're still hearing stuff? Okay, good. Well, it's going to be delayed too, so we'll and I think if he stands here, we'll be good. So let's just get started. Hey, we're going to get started.
Yeah, I know. I saw your son.
Okay, so I'm going to do a Make sure that you live stream. All right, let's get started. Welcome everybody to the June 2014 Unix User Association Southern California meetup, the LA chapter. Woo! Woohoo! Thanks for showing up. My name's Jordan Schwartz. I'm going to do some intros and some introductory information. We'll get some other stuff out of the way, and then we'll start shortly with Steve R's talk about his autonomous vehicle project. So, Unix User Association, we have a website, UUASC.org. Membership is free. And to be a member, what you need to do is join our mailing list. So if you haven't joined our mailing list, go to UUASC.org, and there's information on how to do that. That's the main place where we communicate. There are 3 mailing lists: the general mailing list, where we chat about Unix, Linux-related stuff. There is also an announced mailing list. This is for the olden days, where you had your work email account and you only wanted to get the announcements about meeting changes. That's the kind of stuff that happens at the announcement. Oh, hey, there's a presentation happening, or what have you. The third list we have is a jobs mailing list. This is it is a moderated email list for Linux, Unix-related jobs in Southern California. If you have a job to post there, or you're looking for work and you want to post up a link to your resume or what have you, you can do that there. You just send email to uac-jobs@uac.org, and assuming it's for a Unix Linux-related work or you're doing that kind of stuff in Southern California, the moderator will pass it through. And also, if you're being counted by a recruiter, like or a placement person like the good people at Q, or carefully helping you build your career. You can also remind them, of course they already know because they're hosting this, that they can also throw their job information. Just by emailing the list, you don't need to be a member of the jobs mailing list to post to it, because the moderator will do that. That's enough about mailing list things, but please do join the mailing list, the general mailing list. Unix User Association, we have Southern California. We have 2 chapters. We have a OC chapter, which hasn't had meetups in a while. But if you're interested in presenting down there, let me know or email leaders at uac.org, because it would be good to start that again. The LA chapter meets on the first Thursday of the month. And I try to have one every first Thursday of the month. So, and of course, I'm always looking for presenters. So if you're interested in presenting at UAC, this would be something, all it has to have is has to be an interest to our members, and that would imply that there is some sort of a Unix or Linux related tangent to it. We've had talks about Bitcoin, MakerBots, whatever, the Debian project, all kinds of interesting stuff. Digital imaging, including a 360-degree spherical panoramic photo that was taken right here in this room. Yeah, that was really cool, actually. So anyway, if you're interested in presenting, if you want to do a whole thing, or even if you got a partial thing, we could take a couple of shorter talks and chop them together. A lot of our presenters have gone on. We're sort of the farm league for Scale, the Southern California Linux Expo. So you could kind of get your chops down here and then submit, and who knows, this February 2015, you could be on the big stage down the street at the LAX Hilton, speaking at scale to 2,500 of our closest friends. Anyway,
What
so
we really need is dancing girls.
yeah. Well, actually, we just need girls to show up. That would be a good start. So, with that said, I think that's all the meeting business. But of course, we always want to thank our host, Carolyn Oswald. Thank you. Tell me a little bit about Q and what's happening.
Hi, so I'm Karen. How long do I have?
Yes.
Right. Oh my God.
I know.
Right.
In the spotlight.
Anyone behind this light? I'm not standing here. Okay.
Yeah,
So
whatever.
I'm Carolyn, and I work here at Q. For anyone that's not familiar with us, we are an IT and digital talent firm. It means we're recruiters. We try to be like the nice guys. We try not to bug you all the time and send you jobs that aren't, a match for your skills. We try to do things right. We try to support the community as much as we can by having meetups here. We host meetups, sponsor meetups all over the city. We help out with scale. We do everything we can. I also have my own meetup, UUASC-LA. Need speakers for that as well. So quick plug there. So if anybody needs our assistance, we are happy to help out with resumes. Just get like a read on the current market. If you are looking for a job, if your company's for employees, if you know someone that's looking, you can send a referral to us. We have a great referral program. So, if any of those things sound like something that you need, please feel free to let me know. You can also contact me through the meetup page if you can't find me somewhere else for some reason. So that is all I'm going to say, other than please recycle because the environment thinks.
Is there any wireless?
There is. It's on the board right behind you. I'll also open this for you.
So, hey, thank you very much, Carolyn, for hosting the meetups. And with no further ado, here's Steve R. to talk about his autonomous vehicle project. Oh, there is one other thing. Afterwards. So, one of the cool things about meeting here is that we're right next to the wonderful Howard Hughes Mall, and there's a lot of good places to eat. Of course, we end up, after the meeting, you're welcome to join us over at Islands. We can continue on the conversation about autonomous vehicles or anything with a Linux-related tangent or beer. So feel free to join us there after the meeting. Go Kings, go Heat. Yeah.
Okay.
We're on it. We're off to a good start.
I'm Steve Rieger. I'm an infrastructure architect, Linux admin guy for 95. Flying remote control helicopters, multi-copters, whatever they call it. It's been a hobby of mine for a long time. I spent 8 years in the military doing search and rescue, and I figured out a couple of years ago I decided to combine. I got to stand up on that thing. Figured I combine my knowledge about search and rescue and my hobby of flying remote control, try to bring them together and try to make something that the world can use. I don't want to pay licensing fees, so I decided to start using open source tool. I've been working on this for about 2 years, and we're about 80% there. Plan to have a decent flying machine, or decent vehicle, I should say, probably in the next 2 to 3 months at the latest. All right, I'll give a brief introduction, and I'll dive into the details as I go on. So during Hurricane Katrina, the U.S. Air Force had, I think, 16 helicopters. Multiple private firms had multiple helicopters all lined up in the I-10 bridge. There was an Air Force TAC doing air traffic control. People standing on the bridge with a tiny little radar screen, radar scope, and dispatching. They do need flight control, even if it's only helicopter. The problem, one of the biggest problems, is nobody knew who was where during Hurricane Katrina. New Orleans is massive. You had probably 120,000 people on the rooftops, trying to get help. Nobody did an overview of how many people we have and what the city looks like. They were just, the helicopter was flying, one person radioing back, there's another person 20 feet further up. So the next helicopter went, and that's how they did the rescues. That is an actual picture of the operation in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. So that all started me thinking. So based on that, and as an introduction, most of the software that I wrote for this not by myself, with the help of other people, some of it by myself and some of others, does not necessarily have to apply to helicopters. You can apply this to a helicopter, multi-copter, fixed wing, or a rover, which is a land base. Out there they call it rover because it can be a tank or on a 6-wheel track or just any 4-wheel car. So whatever you want to call it. So rover, fixed wing, or rotary wing vehicle. Some of the early requirements I came up with: a minimum of 1 hour flight. You can buy multi-copters out there in Radio Shack and online Amazon, all over the place. You buy damn good ones for $1,300, $1,400. They'll only last 20, 25 minutes, and that's not good enough because it'll take you 10 minutes to get anywhere. Because chances are that if something happens, you can bring your vehicle, multi-copter. Again, when I talk about vehicle, I talk about any of the above. You cannot bring the rescue vehicle close enough to be within 5 minutes of it. If it's that big of a, so I need 1 hour flight time. It has to be fully autonomous. If I want to deploy 10 of these, I don't want to have 10 people sitting there and checking and making sure that wherever it's going is where it's supposed to be going. I want it to be, once it takes off, it's hands-off approach. It does what it needs to do, and it will execute a sub-task based on what it finds, and then once it's complete with that, it'll come back and land where I told him to. So from takeoff, the only thing I have to do is upload the mission statement, start the engine, and back off. And once whatever happens, whether the rotors go fast enough, the engine warmed up enough, or it's got enough energy to turn the wheels, it takes off, it does what it needs to, it comes back and in a safe way. If something happens, and this is for the airborne, if something happens mid-flight, it has to be able to land safely on the spot or deploy a parachute and cut off fuel supply to the engine. Those are absolute requirements. So we have to have a flight plan. We have to be able to, on a laptop or actually on a tablet, where I do have an Android client, that you connected the USB cable, the Arduino board that's on board the vehicle. And I'll go into that in a minute, but you define a flight plan, which is a searched area. You don't define a grid, you just 4, 5, 6, whether it's square or polygon or whatever shape you want that your area of interest is in. That's what I call a flight plan. If it's an airborne vehicle, it'll figure out how to get there. If it's a ground-based vehicle, it's a little more complicated, but it'll still figure out how to get there as long as there's no invisible trees in the way. The mission plan that's where we go to open source, pretty much OpenCV. A couple of options. I'll go into a little more details on that. We can do a couple of things. Find a person, locate the fire, or map out a fire. If there's flooding, how big is the water? We know what the city looked like prior, but now the water entrenched, how many miles or how many feet did it go? That's what I call a mission plan. And fail-safe and safety procedures I spoke about is cut fuel, deploy parachute, or return to home, or return to land. One of those 4 should always be, in every flight plan, one of those 4 should always be. Yeah. So kind of the tools, the hardware that I'm using is BeagleBone Black, BeagleBone board. Actually, currently it's called the Pixel board, but the next revision is going to be on BeagleBoard Black. That's for the flight control and for the mission statement. If there's other boards out there, I will test them, and once I find out how they work, I will certify it and sign my name on it or however it works. But right now, that's the best bang for the buck kind of thing that I found. I'm not trying to make this prohibitively expensive. The airframe, and I'm specifically talking about a single rotor helicopter tonight. If you want to go multi-rotor, we can discuss that. Multi-rotor is a whole different set of complexities. It needs different engineering for downdraft, the weight ratios. So I'm sticking with the single rotor for this presentation. But if anybody has any multi-rotor questions or anybody online is in the multi-rotor community, feel free to ping me offline and I'll answer your questions.
By single rotor, do you mean contra rotation?
The standard helicopter. No. Single rotor. It's got a tail rotor as well, but the main shaft is single. So it's an Airstar airframe made in the U.S. Did you know a diesel engine that powers a dual generator, which is a reverse alternator, to power all the onboard electronics? Again, all of those multi-copters that you can buy out there, you have to put about if you want 15 minutes of flight time, you need 6 battery packs. That's 3/4 of your payload. So the longer you want to fly, after half your flight, 50–60% of your payload is dead weight. So no onboard batteries. I have one onboard battery. These fairly small. I mostly use it if there's an interruption in power flow. But the engine puts power to the battery powers all the onboard electronics. The rotor itself is driven directly by the engine, not by the battery. Right? Their flight control, because whatever the aircraft does, it will send back telemetry information live, whether you pilot it or not. Again, this is autonomous, but even if it's autonomous, it's going to send back telemetry to your dashboard. And I'll show that in a minute. That runs on a 433 megahertz. The reason for that is that'll give me 15 to 25 mile range. Again, the standard multi-rotors out there that you buy, 1.8, 2.4, or 5 point something gigahertz, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile at the absolute most on a good day. This is not good enough for me. If I have to deploy to Angeles Forest, I'm not going to be within a half a mile of somebody being lost. I don't even know where they are. The FPV, which is a live video, I'm still working on that, but right now I'm at 1.2 gigahertz, but that's liable to change based on the requirements. Software.
Now, what is the purpose of that radio?
What's that?
What's the purpose of that radio?
It'll give you a live video feed of whatever the vehicle sees. The software is Arduino, controls the flight. It's actually a Python running on our Arduino board, but it's Arduino for all intents and purposes. OpenCV does image processing, which is all part of the mission statement or the mission plan. Everything that this vehicle is going to do is based on an image of some sort, feedback from a camera of some sort, whether it's an infrared camera, standard, or I don't even know what other kind of cameras there are. Radar, some sort of an image. It can be a radar image, actually. That I discussed that with somebody in Europe yesterday, but that's a whole different story. But every mission is going to be based on an image that it receives from an external source. When we use OpenCV to monitor and react to whatever the external image feeds us. A lot of Python post-processing scripts and programs that takes the image, feeds it into OpenCV, and processes it out and updates the flight plan, because we initially set up a flight plan, fly from here to across the street, go around in circles for 300 feet, and then come back if you don't find anything. If it finds something, the flight plan has to get updated mid-flight. And it has to recalculate the best flight area, and if it finds something at this GPS coordinates, I have to circle it from 300 feet away, 400-foot altitude. So all that has to be updated while it's flying. Yes, sir.
What processor does that run?
Both of them are running on the Beagle boards. RevC. So I'm still on backstock for one of them, but the other one I have. Mavlink is what connects OpenCV and the Python to the Arduino Python piloting software. And Mavlink also is going to be the desktop kind of or tablet application. I will show you guys what that looks like.
Is that something you wrote?
No, Mavlink is actually open source. It's on Git. I am part of I do contribute to it. But the Arduino Flight, Mavlink are currently fully open source. OpenCV, well, everybody knows it is open source, but the custom stuff will be made available on Git. I don't want to put my stuff on Git yet because the big helicopter, and I'll show you guys a photo in a moment, if misused or if you put the wrong code in there, it will take your head off. The blade is approximately 4.5 feet long, and at the outside edge of it, it travels 350 miles an hour. So it's not a toy. Yes, sir.
Which Arduino are you using?
BeagleBone. The Beagle board, black, BeagleBone.
Okay.
It's actually not an
I wasn't familiar with that as being Arduino.
It's not, yeah.
Okay, it's not considered one?
Okay, that's what.
It's a different product. That was Ralph's talk a couple of months ago.
I always put that under that. My bad. The challenges we're facing, I've had other people that have heard from the NSA or other three-letter agencies about facial recognition. We're not doing any facial recognition. We're doing facial detection or human detection. I'll get into facial recognition. I'm going to do a little bit more in-depth into OpenCV in a little bit. The FAA states whatever I do is highly illegal. Anything above 150 feet is is illegal by the FAA. Anything under that is illegal by the LAPD. So go. That's LAPD actually released a statement saying you cannot fly this under 150 feet. That is not FAA jurisdiction, but they do release that. The FCC licensing, it's not that expensive. It's just in order to fly this on the 433 megahertz, you need to have an FCC license. Otherwise, it's a federal offense, and they will get you. But not a lot, but a couple of police departments run in that kind of range. And if you fly close to a substation, you can interfere with them. This antenna that's on the vehicle is kind of powerful. It puts out a lot of wattage. So it can talk back to you, and it screams constantly. So you might step on somebody. So beware if you decide to do something like this, beware of that. Go out in the desert and do a test flight. Don't fly it on mountain ridges here. The infrared cameras are kind of expensive. Barometric sensors, we use that for altitude. For the most part, it only works when we want to land or take off. Any barometric pressure sensor under $50 will only go out to 8 to 10 feet. So when the vehicle comes in for a landing, it relies on the barometric pressure sensor to find out how close it is to the ground based on the feedback it gets underneath, based on the airflow.
So are there any radio alternatives available?
Any radio?
So you get the ones.
That's a whole other FCC regulation. I don't want to get into it. And I don't want to constantly, one second. I don't want to constantly scanning because, you know, I know how altitude based on GPS satellite signal. Okay, and that's fine. But however, that said, GPS satellites can be a little bit off. And if you want to be extremely exact, I'm still doing some research on the barometric pressure.
It's barometric also has its issues. You still have to fine tune it. I mean, any given day the pressures are different.
And every time before you fly this vehicle, you will have to fine tune this somewhat. The initial configuration is about 4 to 6 hours for the software to figure out what kind of vehicle it is and how much power it needs to lift off, so on and so forth. But once that's done, every day you'll have to fine tune it based on the weather, pressure, wind speed, all of that, so whatever the case may be.
The barometric sensor is only for landing.
It's only for takeoff and landing. That is it.
Why don't we use an ultrasound sensor?
Too expensive.
You might want to stick.
Okay, maybe I will. Then I'll look into it. I always thought that was
The thing is that people may not be able to hear the question, so if you repeat it, so it's if you could repeat what he asked.
The question was why not using an ultrasound sensor instead of barometric pressure sensor? Right. Because that's what everybody else used up until now, and that's what I stuck with. But I will look at the ultrasound.
Since the price may be only
$2, that would be nice. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's a parrot quadcopter, a small one, almost toy-like, and it uses the ultrasound, but it also limits how high you can go. So
he said he just uses it.
But that's the thing. I only use it for takeoff and landing. Nothing else.
But that. So it could work.
So it could work, and I'll check it out.
It's a parrot quadcopter.
I've read about it. I've never tested them. I actually know a couple of people that have them, but like I said, I've never actually flown it. So it's possible. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just took a technician class amateur radio thing, and it turned out to be remarkably easy to get through the test. And once you do the test, they have a whole band you can use.
I know that. But you still need to pass that test and get an FCC license. You cannot just take this and fly and transmit on 433 megahertz anywhere because you will step on somebody, and if the FCC catches you, they don't play games.
But the guy's comment was it was easy.
Yeah, it's
the
really
test
easy
is
to
not
take the
too
test.
challenging.
The test is not hard. It's not major.
10 hours.
Yes, sir.
I have no idea about the price range and weight penalty. How about inertial guidance? Inertial guidance. They used to require a mechanical gyroscope. Now they require a seat-based gyroscope.
This is a computer-based gyroscope.
Well, this would fit in with your computer. I think Collins Radio's got an inertial. Some of the commercial airplanes. I don't know how big the unit is.
The Pixel board has a built-in gyro, and
I'm talking about full-up inertial guidance. It coordinates with your GPS.
I don't have to be that exact.
Okay.
They use them
At least I haven't. Yeah, I'm not Boeing or the Department of Defense.
Well, but you're flying in their space.
Under a certain
flight
Yeah,
level,
and
but
I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if FAA begins to require you to do that.
Okay. Like I said, I haven't dealt with the FAA.
Don't
yet,
give
but-
them any ideas.
I'm not giving them any new ideas.
So I'm sure the FAA is still coming up with the rules and regulations for this, so whenever they publish it,
It will be in cooperation with whatever's up there now.
oh, I'm sure.
We'll take questions after.
One more.
Yeah, it's fun.
Quick question. Since you've got all these hassles with this particular ban, was there a reason that you didn't choose a more public ban like cell phone?
Interference and range.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, why are we transmitting on 433 megahertz? Why not go on any public available citizen band or publicly available band? The answer is for range.
The cell phones, you have coverage, so as long as you have cell coverage.
It's not reliable.
Yeah, after a
Hurricane
disaster,
Katrina.
so gone.
Again, Angelo's Forest, I don't have any cell phone towers.
But 440 megahertz.
133 has a range of up to 25
Yeah,
miles.
isn't it 440 that's part of ham band and you could go nuts on?
But you need a license.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So, but if somebody steps on me for a second, I'm fine with because I'm constantly transmitting, and there's fail-safes built in. If the vehicle loses contact with base and it doesn't know what to do next and it can't figure out how to get home, it will land. So I'm okay if I get stepped on, but I want to be able to see as much information as I can while it's out there. Remember, it's doing something for us. I'm not trying for fun.
My thing was just, if you're having a problem with these dedicated things, why not use either cell or ham, and if the ham radio gives you the range, why not use that instead of the
433 is hand, kind of.
kind of?
Well, it's licensed for the public once you get the FCC license. So that's what I mean, but you have to get the FCC, you have to take the ham radio license test in order to fly this, and sooner or later, you'll have to take some sort of FAA test in order to fly this as well, so it's going to be fun. Just for a hobby, go figure. Anyways, the scenarios is, there's in OpenCV, and I'll go into OpenCV in a little bit, so we're going to primarily use 3 different functions in OpenCV. A human detection, heat detection, which are different, and count. So human detection is I train OpenCV what a human looks like. I train it based on math. This is what the average human looks like. Anything that falls within a certain percentage is considered a human. Yes, it'll probably count the deer as a human if the deer is
I'm a
standing.
Sasquatch.
I have a Sasquatch, but probably, I don't know, maybe not a Barbie, I don't know. But yes, you'll have false positives, but it all depends on how much you train. And that's why I want that video feed coming back, because if you do rely on this vehicle out there, and it's flying in Angelo's Forest, and it tells you it found a lost hiker that's been gone for 16 hours, and it comes back, hey, it's only a deer, bypass it. Mark it as an X, and it keeps on going. That's why I still want that live video feed. Persons in inland water body, I'm not trying to go out to the ocean. I stick inland, only lakes, rivers, whatever. It doesn't make a difference how fast it's moving. But the whole sea rescue thing, the Coast Guard is damn good at that. But I think, again, I'm going Angelo's Forest or Katrina. That's where I want a fast count of how many people. If a massive cruise liner goes down, I'm gonna be able to do squad anyways. Hands down. I mean, the guy gets on the radio, Mayday, Mayday. The captain went overboard, and we got 300 souls overboard as well. The captain ain't here, which is usually what happens. No, you can't pull out many resources. I'm not a resource. I'm there to give information to the resources that are being deployed. It takes a big Bell helicopter. It'll take him hours to get there. You have to fuel it. The pilots are not there. They're all on standby. They might be on vacation. It's up in the back of an SUV. You drive out, LA County Sheriff or whoever it is wants to do this, puts it in the back of a Suburban, drives out to wherever they need to go, and they can have this deployed in under half an hour. It's not going to fit every situation, but it's a tool. I'm not looking to replace it. It's just a tool out. For heat detection, we can map out a fire. OpenCV can detect differences in temperatures with the right camera. Again, OpenCV will do anything as long as it has the proper input from the proper external device. In this case, it's going to be an infrared camera. And flooding, again, flooding is going to be, for the most part, it's going to be a temperature difference between the water or the ice and the land. Count humans is actually object counting. I should have put count objects. But say you have a train, an aircraft, train accident, aircraft disaster, or a massive earthquake. Everybody runs on the street, right? In all actuality, and I'm going to go into this in a second, law enforcement agencies can use that during the riot as well. You want to see how many people I have on the streets. You can't really fly a big, real-life helicopter low enough to count exactly how many people you have. OpenCV, you have a streaming camera, it'll count real fast. You know exactly, well, plus or minus a couple, but for the most part, it'll give you a decent number. We have the Metrolink train incident up in the valley. The people are going to run out of the trains, and they're going to start roaming within 500 feet, or within a half a mile, whatever the case may be. You will know how many people you have roaming around. Not all of them are injured, but you know what you're dealing with. You have preliminary information.
Yeah, they had the issue at the San Francisco airport when the plane crashed. The people ran out and somebody got ran over by a emergency
We
response.
don't know how many people we have. And that's one of the issues that I want to resolve.
So object counting, how good is it with the, I mean, if people are sort of in a group but they're separated out, pretty
I'll
good.
show that in a minute, but yes.
But density, at some point density may be a problem, right?
Not necessarily. But I'll go into that in a second after the presentation. Law enforcement agencies, I'm not going to go there, but I have to include it because I'm sure some of you guys are going to ask or somebody's going to pose a question later. Yes, there are applicable scenarios for this. I'm not trying to sell a drone to LAPD. They have to. And
No, yeah, you're not going to go there because I think the city of Seattle already did. The Seattle Police Department just donated, right?
Yeah, they gave
some
right
drones.
LAPD.
Wasn't that nice of them?
But again, you have the Carnival Daisy Festival they had in the Forum, and they had a couple of overdoses there, and they started partying a little bit too much. If a police department wants to know how many people are at the festival, so they can pull resources in to evacuate it, fly this over for a minute and a half, it'll count how many people are there. You have a riot on the street. You got 3,000 people marching down the street, but you don't know how many. You fly it over, it'll tell you how many people. If you want, it can tell you how many people are per square grid. It'll grid it out and tell you how many people are in the grid.
And that's actually an interesting point because of for large peaceful demonstrations, there's debates about the estimation of how many people were actually there. So this could be theoretically give more accurate information about attendance.
But one of the reasons I'm sticking to agencies, official government agencies, is because they will have the license requirements to do all this. I'm a hobbyist. I cannot fly this vehicle over a civilian population without being arrested and God knows what else. But a government agency, no matter what letters they fall under, they have the abilities to work it out with the FCC and the FAA and everybody else they need to do this. I can't. No civilian agency that I know of in the U.S. will be allowed to count how many people we have on the streets riding. It doesn't make sense. So the same thing with search and rescue. I doubted that any county search and rescue was going to want to turn over their whole operation to a civilian agency. It just doesn't make sense. So that's why I'm sticking to talking about government agencies.
So there is actually, out in Texas, there's a group that does it, and the county does engage them.
Yes, they do.
But they're having a fair share of trouble as well.
Yes, and I know that. And for the most part, LA County Search and Rescue is staffed by volunteer civilians as well. But the Texas one, they're having some issues with the federal government for this exact reason. But if whatever county in Texas they fall under, if the county were to take this under their umbrella, then the FAA would send them a letter, and they pretty much tell the FAA at all. We're also government.
Autocorrect the spelling when you do it.
When you spell do that.
Double
You
T.
do double T or is it double T?
Double T.
Okay. Perfect. Yes, sir.
How fast can you?
50 to 55 miles an hour.
So if you're in a high-speed chase, you can't keep up.
I can.
Yeah,
I kind of can as long as I'm on a straight and narrow road. But this is not meant for high-speed chase. It can be used, but that's not the market I'm going for. For the most part, for a high-speed chase, you want a real police helicopter because they're going to want to tell the cops down below where they are.
Yes.
Or what's happening. I don't think you can build for under $2-3 million, I don't think you can build a vehicle that will go fast enough for a high-speed chase. That's just personal opinion.
Even the cops had trouble keeping up with 1
Yeah, so it's not where I don't think it's going to be very useful. The scenarios for that, by the time you get this deployed, and say this thing does go 100 miles an hour, it's sitting at Van Nuys Airport or LA City Fire Department Station number 22, but the chase is on the other end of town. I don't see how, unless you buy 20 of them. I don't, you understand what I'm saying? I don't think that's useful too. So again, how many cars are driving by? If you have to evacuate a city, or you have Dodger Stadium, they want to figure out how many cars are coming in, how many cars are going out. For whether it's for security or just for the general public count, we can use OpenCV to count the cars, not the people. We can use it to count cars as well. Facial recognition is where it gets a little bit iffy. I know a couple of people that have written some facial recognition stuff, and they all got phone calls or emails from federal government saying you can't export this or you need to whatever. I'm not going to get into it. All I'm going to say is OpenCV can do. If you set a camera at the entrance for any building and you would plug it in with OpenCV and you put in the people that you don't want it to come in, it will highlight them in red if any of them walk to the camera. And it'll do it that fast, and that is fully open source. You do not have to go to Boeing or any other proprietary software company to get facial recognition up and running. You can utilize OpenCV 100% to do facial recognition, as long as you have a photo of the person. License plate reader is actually really simple with OpenCV. Again, LAPD, I know they have a license plate reader as well as, and I'm not trying to pick on LAPD, so I hope this doesn't get back to me. Most police departments out there have some sort of cameras on their cars, on some cars to do license plate reading. It's not necessary. You can use OpenCV to do that, and you can put this Pixel board or whatever non-Arduino board that you want to do on with the camera, with the software on any platform, and just have it. You're looking for a car that just did a, say, Amber Alert. It can buzz up the 5 freeway or the 405 and start reading license plates left and right. And they'll tell you if the car is there.
What can I do to my license plate to trip it out?
Well, it's OCR is what it is. So change the 8 to a smiley face or something. I don't know.
Put some dirt on it.
When you get the yearly tag, usually it's got, you peel it off, there's like a little leftover piece of tag there on the left. I've seen people take that leftover piece and like stick it somewhere in the letters to make the letters not obvious what they are anymore. And they can plausibly say like, it was just the tag. Just the tag on the slip.
I like that.
One of the cool things in Open, I'm going to start stepping a little bit into OpenCV because that's a lot of this technology is based on OpenCV. Is open source computer vision. It's free. Download it and Git. There's a lot of things you can do with it. Here we have an original image. We use OpenCV to detect, to only display the background, eliminate the foreground. We use reverse, and we turn the background into a green. This can all be done live on an actual video camera without any interruption. And I'll show some examples in a few minutes. Here we have facial detection. It took 4.2 seconds for OpenCV to highlight all the faces on this picture. Yes, it has this guy's right hand or his left pocket, and that cluster of people, that's not Godzilla, but for the most part, it got it right. I'd say 86, 87%, maybe even in the 90s. That's pretty damn good. There's a couple of, and I'm going to say this very publicly, but I'm not a racist. OpenCV is known to have a problem with dark-skinned people. It's just, what's that? Yeah. Everybody that's involved in OpenCV is working on that. But they are.
So if it's infrared, that problem goes away.
Yeah, that problem goes away. I'm talking about this kind of, this. OpenCV will detect the human face based on math. And it's not that dark-colored people have different faces. The light bounces off them differently, and a camera that's based with a computer in the background will detect the math a little bit differently. That's all it is.
Hats throw up. That one did.
Hats will throw up.
That one on the upper right.
The more you train it,
Right.
yeah. Oops. That guy seems to.
Oh, yeah.
That guy's also
He's
wearing
got
a
a
hat.
shadow on his forehead.
The more you train it,
That's
the
not a
better it'll get. But that's also a very high, very dense image. Here we have the famous human detection, but it's done with the beetles. The greens are true positives. The reds are where OpenCV thought there was a human, but there actually wasn't. And it'll see the difference because we trained it a little bit better. And with OpenCV, you have to train it what to do. It's not a program it's a tool or tool, I guess, would be the best word to describe. You have to train it what to do. So here we train it to do human detection. The first pass, it'll pick up all the red ones as well. You train it even more. This is what a human looks like based on math. And there's a couple of different math XML meta files that you can get that are that'll give you a starting point that you can work with. And they're all being more, I don't know why. Yeah, fine-tuned that every day as it goes up. Now it only picked up the 4 beetles, and the rest of it.
There's a guy at the street lamp on the corner of that crazy fine job.
I guess he was cropped out. I don't know. That's the actual helicopter. It's black now, but once upon a time that's what it looked like.
And you did black helicopters just to be a jerk, or?
No. This is a frame. I replaced some parts of the frame.
The conspiracy theorist.
I replaced parts of the frame.
So how long is that?
Remote control helicopters and remote control multi-copters are measured by their blade size or distance between. So a single rotor, this is what we call a remote control helicopter, is measured by the length of each of the main blades. This one is a 1,000 millimeter. So each blade is 1,000 millimeters. So this tail boom is usually going to be between 11 and 1,200 millimeters. I'll get to you in 1 second. The multi-copter is measured center between the propellers across the corners. So say this is one big multi-copter. We have 4 propellers difference between here and here. The distance is going to be the size of your multi-copter.
Just like your TV.
Yes. So the big multi-copters are running the 600 range. Anything above that, you might run into issues with each propeller is going to fight the other one because they create too much downdraft and too much power touch.
That's between the rotors of the
Between the center shaft.
center shaft.
Yes,
So
center
this
shaft.
you have blades that are
But you can't have them too close to each other because they'll fight each other to some extent. So you had a question back there?
Ask how much it weighs? How much does it weigh?
Dry? I have no idea. It's light enough for me to pick up, but it's probably about between 10 and 15 pounds. It can carry 20 to 25 pounds easily, fully fueled and loaded. I know somebody, and I have a video, and I can show it to you. I don't have it with me, but I can get it and send it out on the list. But somebody, and everybody in the world wanted to kill them. They took 2 700 millimeters, and they had a girl hold on to 2 O-rings and the 2 helicopters lift her. They almost took her head up. I'm not kidding. But 2 700 millimeter helicopters will pick up a 95, 98 pound woman. So that tells you the strength. Approximately 9 months ago, there was a gentleman in Brooklyn, New York. There was somebody flying a 750 millimeter one of these. He walked into the helicopter as it came down. He did something wrong in the flight controls, and when it came down, it moved. And he was walking, it took the top of his skull straight up. Whoa. So these things are not toys. It's seriously not a toy. A little multi-copter, a little bit more of a toy because it'll scratch you, it might break your finger, but it won't kill you. These things will kill you. Okay? But please go out and have fun. Yeah, I think I'm joking. It's a great hobby. It's fun. And if you're interested, you can do search. You go online and do a Google search for 3D RC helicopter flying. You can fly these things upside down.
Yeah, and there's in meetup.com. I think there's some helicopter or quadcopter training. I think in Venice.
Yeah. There's a group that meets in Venice every Sunday. But there's a lot of fun to be had with these things, and they're fun. And I just want to make a tool that will be useful to search and rescue kind of things, and maybe law enforcement one day if they decide to use it. But why not? combine the two of these things, and OpenCV is an amazing tool. Combine them all.
Here's a word to add to your vocabulary. Craniectomy.
Yeah, well, this was, again, thanks to OpenCV, Airstar International, I gotta give them a mention. One thing I forgot to put in here because it was mentioned to me was Tux Lab out in the San Gabriel Valley is kind of an open, he's not an open source, but he's an open lab. Very good makerspace. If you want to build, if you're interested in building small contraptions, come out there. I go out there on every 2 weeks or so with him.
It's called Tux Lab.
Tux Lab.
TUXLAB.
TUX-LAB.com. It's on Meetup. Full-on CNC machines and 3D printers and all that good jazz. More hardware than you can throw a stick at. But it's all about collaboration. We all pile in together and we work together on whatever project it is. Currently, we're working on an automatic hockey playing machine. So you know the ice hockey, or sorry, air hockey. You're going to be playing a computer based on OpenCV. Yes, sir.
The helicopter's got an autopilot.
Yes, it does.
How does one go about inventing an autopilot for a or did you
It's not that hard. Take input from sensors, 600 frames. No, I forgot the exact frequency, but there's a frequency of how many times you have to take input from sensors. And as long as you tell him what to do, I can't get my laptop real quick. As long as you tell him what to do, it'll do it. And speaking of this, I'll show you guys.
Because these are originally radio controlled, so they're meant for just a servo action, controlling your collector.
But and all you're doing is you're putting a computer in there, some sort of a computer that will tell the servos what to do.
There are autopilots for those quadcopters which are based on Arduino Nanos.
Yeah.
So that is.
I guess that's my question. Is it, can you go down to some shop and buy a helicopter autopilot that knows about gyro sensors and barometric pressure?
Yeah, you'll kind of have to train it, but yes, this is.
Training it sounds like it'd be an incredibly expensive thing to do if you made a mistake.
Oh, if you make a mistake, it'll be fatal. Yeah. That's why I said these things are responsible toys, kind of, but they're still toys, and you can have a lot of fun with them. This is for the autopilot software. This is the desktop application.
Oh, cool.
Mission Planner. I'll give me a couple of minutes. I'll show you guys the Android app. See, pretty much does the same exact thing.
What's a typical investment?
Depends how big you want to go. It starts at probably $700-800 for the little multi-copter thingies. But when you talk to single motors, generally electric single motors are going to run you about $1,000 to $1,200. When you're talking the one that I showed you, you're talking $300 to $500. That's, again, that is a responsible toy kind of thing. Whereas if you just want to have fun, just go out and buy whatever models we mentioned a little while ago.
There's some little ones about that big for $35.
That's a coax, yeah, and that's those are fun to play at home with. Well, yeah, the cat's gonna run out. You can actually attach a paper clip if you want to carry payload.
This is open source, Mission Planner.
Yes, it is.
And okay, so I just.
And it will run on Ubuntu. Problem is, I run Fedora on this laptop, and I haven't had the time to get it through. But there's a couple of different versions of Mission Planner out there. But yes, it is open source. Yes, sir.
Really want to be experienced. About a decade ago, somebody at the Bronx Air Show was flying UE 500.
Okay, that's fun. That's scale model?
No, UE 500.
Okay, that's kind of expensive.
Used aircraft 500 that they built down in Culver City. The egg-shaped fuselage.
You're gonna have war circles.
His objective, of course, was to go to Hollywood and be the substitute chopper for an accident or something.
So this is the desktop application, and it kind of looks the same on the tablet, Android, iPhone, iPad, whatever is out there.
Now this is an open source.
This is open source, yes. It's a community collaboration. The same people that write autopilot. This version of there's about 6 or 7 different versions of autopilot software. Once you pick one, you kind of stick with it because not all hardware works with all. And some of them even though they were meant to be open source, have been proprietarized. They will only run a specific board, so on and so forth. Also, choose wisely, do your research before you make an investment into what you want to do. If you want to go on NASA 3 to 4 or 5 years ago, maybe, NASA was world-class open, autopilot. It was kind of expensive. Now they're trying to catch up because this software beat them, in my opinion, will beat them hands down, and this is open source.
Is it Java based or is it?
It's all Python.
Python?
It's pretty much a Python. So you can write out a whole mission statement or a whole flight plan. Sorry, you can write out a whole flight plan in pure text if you understand. And if you go online on Ardocopter.com, I forgot the exact website, something along those lines. People post their flight logs all the time for everybody else to debug, saying, "Hey, I was loitering and I lost about 20 feet of altitude." Can somebody figure out why? And that's how the software gets better. Because everybody shares. But once you get good enough, you can actually write out a whole flight plan in a text file, upload it to your helicopter, and that's how we update. When OpenCV discovers a human being, say we want OpenCV to go to Angeles Forest, look for a human being. Once it discovers a human being, it spits out the GPS coordinates in Python, and once Python picks that up, or the board picks that up, it figures out where am I, and how far away from the human being do I have to be in at what altitude. So I tell it to be at 400 feet altitude, but I also tell them on the configuration side, always stay about 150, 200 feet away from whatever object you found. So OpenCV dumps, I found the person, object, at these GPS coordinates. Python then takes that, writes it into a text file. These coordinates, 400 feet altitude, 150 feet away from center, circle. And it sends it down to the autopilot software, and that is what the helicopter will do. It'll circle those GPS coordinates 150 feet out at 400 feet altitude until it figures out that it's running out of fuel. And once it figures out it's running out of fuel, it'll start to come home.
Right? Do you have it circling until it's low on fuel?
Or I override it. With this software, I can override it. I can press a button, RTH, return to home, or RTL, return to land.
But how about, let's say, obstacles in that auto circle, like higher trees?
Hopefully you tell it to fly high enough. Hopefully you tell it to fly high enough.
For your flight plan.
Yeah, that should be part of your flight. I'm working on radar. My problem is that once you introduce radar, it's a whole different scope. If I'm an injured person on the ground, I don't want a radar beam hitting me for an hour.
If you got infrared and you got other visuals, why are you going radar?
He was asking me about obstacles.
Well, you can acquire obstacles with non-radar.
I don't know if I would trust a camera at night. Even infrared, a tree's not going to necessarily show up in an infrared camera. Or power, or maybe power lines will, but the power pole won't.
It's kind of fuzzy for a tree.
You end up having to go light on it. It's expensive.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm not Boeing, and that's the one he asked me. Do you want to do this? I'd love to do that. I'm not Boeing, and I'm not working for the Department of Defense.
If we're not careful, he'll be flying that UUASC-500.
But does that kind of make sense? I don't want to get into the Boeing and Department of Defense territory. That's not.
Well, question, your original objection to radar, it sounded like you thought it was a safety issue.
To me, it's a safety issue because there's a company called Eurobotics that I'm kind of working with, and their question was yesterday: can we detect a breathing human? And yes, if you give me some sort of a radar input, OpenCV will detect. And there's actually a paper, quite a few papers out there. I'll send it out to you guys if you want it. That I pushed the videos of a radar return of a breathing human that OpenCV will properly detect whether the person is breathing or not. So that was their question. My question to them was, if somebody's injured on the ground, my job should not necessarily be whether they're alive or not. My job should be, where is this person? I don't want an autonomous vehicle making a life or death decision, sending back, bring a body bag, don't bring a rescue team. That should be a human being's decision. So technically speaking, if you give me enough money and hardware, yes, we can put some sort of a radar device.
But if you listen to the dispatch tapes from 911. They're getting stuff for the paramedics to know before they arrive, so that they're preparing on the way. And breathing is one of the key things.
I understand that, but if I release this and it makes a mistake and the person was breathing, and it turned around and said the person is not breathing, send the body back, and they go home because they're gonna come back in the morning. I'm not sending out a body back at 3 o'clock in the morning in the rain.
They've got the same caution.
I understand that. I'm not Boeing.
No,
I'm not going that far.
I'm saying you're working only with the paramedics and their dispatchers.
Oh, I know that. I used to be part of the 911 system.
Okay.
We used to get wrong information, we used to get right information. I don't want to be, I'm not diagnosing here.
He's working on version 1.
No, even version 10. I don't ever want to diagnose. I want to say, yes, there's a person. No, there is not a person. That is all I want to do.
But if that's normal information that the paramedics asking for all the time, why aren't you providing it?
Whether the person is breathing or not?
Yeah. That's one of the first things.
Do you want to invest in a radar?
No, the dispatcher's got this big long list of questions that are the normal questions to ask.
I understand that.
Are they up or down, breathing or not?
I
Is there a
understand.
pulse? Is there, you know,
No, I understand. But from the lost hiker perspective, once they will,
If they're moving or not moving,
that's,
you know,
somebody's going to
that's
know.
pretty.
the list goes deeper than that, so that they're prepared to know what the state of the.
Yes.
Well, but in this particular
Instead of
case,
spending an extra 5 minutes that are valuable time determining this thing.
That's why I'm bringing back a live video.
This is version 1 for 10.
yeah. So hey, can you demo the OpenCV software then?
Yeah. Oh, what time is it? Oh, smokes, it's like that.
No, time flies when you're
I just wanna do
debating
this-
911
I just wanna
response.
show you guys this real quick. This is what you do a flight plan. We did import all of these known airports with a 5-mile radius. That's a big bad no. So FAA absolutely don't even try to take off this, not even 62 miles. 5-mile radius per FAA regulation. So every airport, that's what we call a fence. That is a hard fence. No matter what you do, the vehicle will never fly in there. It can't. You can set up another fence wherever you want. So say whatever the big peaks are that have all the radio towers, you can put a fence around that if you don't want to fly close to it because you're afraid of radio interference, which is possible, but you can fence that out as well. So let's do a flight plan real quick. Let's go.
This is on GitHub or source code?
This is on GitHub, yeah.
It's cool.
I want to do geofence. I'm not sure if I'll do it in this one. I'm used to working with them. I'm not big on this. There we go, survey. Okay. That's not what I wanted. 1 second.
Where's your camera?
That's not what I wanted.
Good.
No, it's not responding.
Can you zoom it in?
Well, I gotta move it.
Okay, now it's frozen. But the idea is, then, and I'll kind of try to show it in my Android. But the idea is you set up an area, again, Angelo starts, you zoom in more, and it'll pick up Google Maps. So you kind of need an internet connection for this thing, but I mean, you can just tether people into them. It comes pre-loaded with most of the information. If you want to zoom in really close, then you'll have to get an internet connection. You connect your helicopter to your laptop. I have no idea how it came up with that. Sorry. Yeah, but I don't know how it came up with this thing.
You have to set the percentage of overlap. That looks
Yeah,
like it's set
that-
to like 0 or something.
You see that? I don't know what it is. Yeah. I don't want any overshoots.
Looks like you're tracking the price of Bitcoin.
I know, right? I don't know why you did.
That's next month's talk.
It's, I don't know what it's doing, but I'll show it on the. Yeah, but what I think happened, it picked up too many waypoints, and it's adding a grid to each one of the
So
waypoints.
it's scanning the whole area back and forth.
But what it does is it scans the whole area. Let me see if,
Let me see how you do it this way. Maybe you're too high. So it's,
I don't know. I'll just do it on this one. I have a.
believe it.
Yeah, I'm not used to the windows.
Lotus Notes symbol at the bottom.
Yes, that is Lotus Notes. Yes, I still use it. Yeah, it should be on the auto waypoint. It's in full grid, but
The auto waypoint put all of those in. I mean, it's huge area.
that is true. You're right. That is true. He is right. It is a massive area. I forgot about that part. Let me zoom in.
What's the circle around that?
That's home. That's where I define as home and safe for land, and I can make that as big or as small, as big as or as small as I want it. So draw.
There's no skulls in this area.
You put a beacon or anything on the helicopter so that you can find it if it lands in one of these forsaken.
The radio will always tell you where it is. So as long as if you lose radio signal, the autopilot software is built in, if it loses radio signal for X amount of time, and you can find that, it will try to land safely right then and there. God help you, because trees and whatever. The next iteration is going to kind of look out for trees.
So kind of along that thought line, with some of the FAA considerations, they're talking about potentially having transponders and things like that. Do they have them for this type of aircraft at this point or not yet?
Sorry, say that once more.
The telemetry is
Yeah, but that's to your device. I'm talking about a more GA, general aviation transponder device.
They're going to use airplanes in surveillance. What if you just chose insert waypoint?
That's what I did.
Instead of auto.
Okay, well, now I found it in one pass. Overshoot.
Oh, you're defining an area?
I'm defining an area based on my camera. Based on my camera, if I want to cover this whole square, it has to do 2 passes in order to photograph this whole area. That's what I'm trying to get to. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Yeah, no.
Yeah, sure.
That's why it took the Cray 1 25 hours to do. Another 24 hours a day.
So there you go. Now I figured out a different grid. And this is what it's going to fly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then back home. And it'll fly this grid because this is the easiest way, the shortest way for it to cover every square inch that I drew within the square or round or whatever it is.
So it's got a solution to the traveling salesman problem?
Kinda. UPS does have technology, right? Except that it uses this. They have other kind of mapping software that tells the drivers how to drive.
There's this, doesn't approach it as the ultimate solution to
No.
traveling salesman.
No, they don't. But this is going to be the mission planning. So this is where you save this file and then you upload it to the helicopter. And you keep this up and running. And here you'll see where it currently is, where it's heading, where it's in all that. And this is where you keep track of it. That's what you see. If you have FPV is what they call first-person viewer for these remote controls. You'll have a separate station, whether it's your Android phone or an actual laptop or tablet, that will get the video feed from a camera on board the vehicle, and it'll stream it to you live. But this is all technical information. In order for you to properly program the vehicle, you'll have to connect it via USB and tell it what kind of vehicle it is, and you can go through it. You have to install the firmware configuration and then tell it what kind of video camera and what. A lot. Configuration takes take your time, but once you have that for each one of your helicopters, it's going to be a little bit different.
Is your camera gimbal?
Which one?
You have several.
I use one camera is used for FPV, so I can see where the vehicle is. The other camera is dedicated to OpenCV, and that is on an axis. That's on a motor, so it can move if needed. But for the most part, and this is where the tricky, you want to turn this commercial movie industry, anybody here work in the movie industry? I've spoken to a lot of people who want to do this for the movie industry. The problem is, going this large, you have to know what you're doing. It's not something you walk into a store and buy it. Please, if you want to play, go out and buy one. But buy the ones that you can actually fly. $1,200 ones, the multi-rotors, have fun. Problem is, those cannot carry the big cameras the movie industry needs.
Yeah, and the movie industry's already had problems with helicopters chopping people's heads off.
That I didn't hear, but
that's with people flying. And
all right, now I'm going to get into the OpenCV kind of thing.
Question on the radios.
Sure.
433 and 152 meters. You picked out a manufacturer you like and that stuff?
I actually do, and if you want me to, I'll share it with you. Okay. But anybody can do anybody can do it, really.
I'm just approaching this. I have a ski resort website, and so I want to add more video coverage, like resort reviews and that kind of stuff. So my whole thing is to video and even try to do, like in my other presentation, spherical panoramics. I wanted to actually do that from the air. So I want to carry a big camera as opposed to a GoPro.
Yeah.
So that's usually be stills. I mean, you could just take like an S95 or something, right? And that's a really nice camera.
Yeah, but what's the very real common one that's ready, a quadcopter that's ready to go? GoPro? No, the Phantom.
There's a Phantom 2, and there's another one out there as well, but they're really popular. But the Phantom 2 is probably the most advanced. It's $1,300 fully loaded,
ready to go.
Yes.
the other thing is we did at UUAC, we did have a presentation where somebody hooked your Arduino up to their to a digital SLR and got it to shoot photos on it, the time sequence photos. So it is totally doable, I guess.
I think I want to send this up into the DSLR though, right? It's weighs a lot less.
All right. Well, now we're going to show some of the cool things that we can do at OpenCV. He's one of the people right there that is getting into OpenCV. It's quite powerful. So what we're going to do is simple. This is my live image that is currently, there's a little video camera there. I don't have a camera on this device. There's a little webcam there. So I specifically didn't point it that way because I did not know if anybody here did not want to be broadcast. Those two agree. That's why it's pointed there. So this is a live feed. What I'm trying to do and what I'm going to accomplish is I'm going to make them disappear. And OpenCV will calculate what is behind them and fill it in front of them. That's how powerful OpenCV is. Actually, not with them, but look at him. He's walking by, but he never shows up. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, right.
That was a perfect test.
What?
Not live.
I'm invisible?
It is live. You can kind of see the shadow of him.
He did appear on the upper left.
This is my halfway in. That's my halfway in. This is my end result.
Now you're there.
He is God. Look at him appearing on the screen.
Could you make my
Now
nose
you
disappear?
Look, you stay there.
I'd just like to tighten up the nose a little bit.
But that's what OpenCV can do.
So does it help with people if they move around some? Does it help?
It needs you to move a little bit to figure out what's behind you. But one of the things that I see your hand is kind of disappearing when you do that is figure out what's behind you. And even the newspaper, you don't get the colors right. One of the things I did with this was I actually submitted a sample, had a mudslide in, I forgot where it was.
In Washington State. Yeah.
Washington State.
East
I
Washington.
got my hands on before and after photos, and I overlaid them with OpenCV to show them exactly the square, down to the inch, how much damage they would get. And I sent it to them. They were very appreciative of it. But
You
OpenCV,
could actually find houses.
I can tell you exactly where a house used to be. I did one. After that, I submitted to the National Association for Urban Search and Rescue for the U.S. I took a photo before and after an earthquake, a building that moved 17 millimeters, and I showed them exactly which walls moved. And that's where we get into where OpenCV can be used, but not just for building. It'll do. And I'll show a couple of other examples, but that's how powerful OpenCV is. Yes, it's cool. It can read license plate. It can detect the human. yippee-ki-yays. I'm sure there's more software out there, but to make him God, to disappear as he's walking in front of the camera, that's, give it up to Mr. Schwartz. Yes, sir.
How powerful does the processor where you're running OpenCV on need to be?
The faster you want it to process, the more powerful it has to be.
I mean, realistically, you're running it on 1 gigahertz.
Yes, so I'm not doing any facial recognition, I'm just doing detection.
Your VGA density right now? With that little camera?
Actually, he'll do HD.
But this
Well, this little camera is VGA.
Yeah. So
But
that's the two parameters you gotta control. If you're gonna go ultra high def and try to process that, you're gonna need, it's the basic problem. Speed costs money, how fast.
I'm asking on Dave,
How expensive is it?
for the laptops, we're asking Dave if the VIPs part of the video would be powerful enough for OpenCV, and most people that came back said, no, OpenCV will not properly work on that.
Is OpenCV, really how to ask this, can you multi-thread that?
Yes, you can. You can.
Yeah.
Well,
There
you
your
can
answer
say no.
there your answer is go build that Arduino-based multiprocessor that was built with Lego blocks.
I think we figured out OpenCV doesn't actually run on Arduino, it runs on the Beagle board. It's
Yes,
just a small embedded
But
Linux board.
it's written in Python.
It's written on Python, we'll run it in
Interpreters out there.
OpenCV's not.
Yeah, but it's running on a Linux, a little Linux board. It's not running on Arduino.
I haven't figured out how to make those two work together. So,
Alongside of it, run. So you can run. Please, show over your.
It's another little board.
well, I can't even see that.
It's just different hardware. So, same chips, but different hardware. Yeah. But people made two different versions. Like back in the day, you had the Altair and whatever. It's just using the same components, but assembling them in a different way. Yeah, he knows all about that.
You can't see that.
But that's not an Arduino. That's an Intel component. Oh, no, I was forcing to tell you. Oh, Galileo. Scientist.
1 second. We'll see if, hopefully this shows up here on the screen. Yes. This is a really high resolution video that OpenCV is processing live, and it's doing face detection live. It's not going to be very good because I didn't train it very well. This is just a standard. It's XML configuration file, and I'm not putting a lot of resources. It's really bad code, so it's running really slow. But that's what OpenCV see. It'll get it, and it'll pick him up. Maybe over there in a second, but it picks up weird stuff on the side as well.
You did eye detection to do better?
What's that?
You mentioned eye detection.
Yeah, we can do eye detection. It's not that hard. It's just giving you a quick example. Yep. What OpenCV can do. It's actually counting people, but it's not. What I want to show here.
So you may be getting this, but do you have sort of resources to see what you like, what you don't like, what you recommend, what you don't recommend?
Not really, it's just ask more than anything else. Yeah, kinda. Give me a second, I just want to show one more thing. So this is where you would come in. As a company out to use, I think I can mention that I don't have any issues. Their question, they work some scientific stuff. They have to count fruit flies. Fruit flies are a quarter of a millimeter, something like that. The best way to do it is an open CV. So they have fruit flies. As it's going through on the conveyor belt, open CV is processing it. That's on another fruit fly. And it's highlighting them. But if you look at the original image, it's going by so fast you can't even see it. It's reversing the image white on black, and it's highlighting the actual fruit fly. That's the power of OpenCV. Then I'll do one more. And holy smokes, it's late. I actually filled up the majority of time. Do this one. Give me a second. That's no. One second, I didn't copy or paste it. We're going to see OpenCV count cars running down a freeway. Huh? Can anybody read that for me?
I think you're supposed to see the dots for object detection.
Oh, yeah, it's not on a route. Sorry, I just can't read that. I don't know why it's up. So that'll run, and it's highlighting all the cars, but it's also counting. And we can apply that. That's an object. This is an object detection. So we can apply that with our training XML file. We can apply the same OpenCV lines of code to cars, or I can run it against humans or marijuana plants. Work with DEA, because marijuana plants do have a mathematical signature. The leaf gives off a different type of life based on math. I'm not going to get into it, but some people have no.
Well, that could be you're trying to help people so they can release back pain or
exactly.
Get to sleep better at night.
Yeah.
How is that discriminating?
I don't think it discriminates. It just doesn't see.
Well, there were some. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. And maybe we try it. I think they're too far off. I honestly, I just got that video from YouTube. I was looking for a simple video, and that was it. But you can apply this. No, not for this specific one. No.
You'll notice that it doesn't pick up the ones on the right side immediately.
Yeah, it
has
takes
to take
a
a
second.
couple samples to notice them.
But
Okay, so maybe
OpenCV,
the others don't
again,
get
it's
one.
just a tool. If you train it, you can train it very finite. It'll only pick up people with brown eyes. You want to train it, only pick up people with beards and mustaches, or people that their eyes are further apart than X millimeters. We can do that. It will measure that on the fly.
People that just have their eyebrows connected together.
Hopefully one day somebody will invent a script for OpenCV that will take unibrows and fire off a bullet. Another story. You get my point. But with OpenCV, you can literally, it knows what the eye is because OpenCV in general has been trained what an eye is. There are training files out there for all body parts that I know of, for the face anyways and fingers. If you hold up this OpenCV, if you put the right training file in there, it will read off number 4. It can read sign language and speak and spell it out. You can't speak, but it can spell it out for you. It can understand that. On my Android phone, I have an OpenCV thingy. If I go like this, it starts playing music. If I go like this, it opens up Google Maps. So it will detect whatever you train it to detect. And it doesn't make a difference who shakes their head yes or no. As long as there's a head that shakes this way, it matches my mathematical formula. And that's all OpenCV cares about.
So do they use that for like, I guess, I'm sorry, for like handicapped people or whatever? Is that how they use where they can move things around by moving their eye around? Or is that...
I don't know what's out there, but I know there's some OpenCV work being done with the handicapped community. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions on OpenCV or anything in general?
Lots. It's a separate presentation.
So what your project then? What's the plan with your project? What can you tell us about
I can tell you everything I've told you. My plan is to have a follow-up at a location that I know that I can actually do a flight. Because it's something that's near and dear to me, and I want you guys all to see it because it's fun.
Yeah,
As much as you respect it, I also want you to understand that I respect it. I'm not afraid of it. It's a tool. It depends on how you use it. In a lot of open source software, a lot of hours went into making it. And I can do it at Drop Labs. I'll just get them to clear out the parking lot for a day. We'll do a presentation down there.
Wow.
And it'll be a few months down the road, but it's
Why don't you get a hold of SpaceX?
What?
Why don't you get a hold of SpaceX?
Maybe we can do it at SpaceX. I know some people, but I've never spoken to them. So.
Going past the 3 mile limit.
I'm not going to go far. I just want to take off, fly a
That's
circle.
out of the jurisdiction.
I'm not worried about the FAA. By the time they get to me, it'll be the next time.
I'll edit that part out.
LAPD stated, I don't know if you remember, but LAPD, when they released, we cannot fly our remote control vehicles in the air. I replied to them, what, are you going to arrest me? I mean, I'm not breaking any city laws. You don't have any jurisdiction. You really don't. Above 250 feet, they do not have jurisdiction.
But this is the same department that says photography.
They released that statement saying you cannot fly these vehicles above the city because we will arrest you. But there are no laws in the book on the books in the city of Los Angeles, or there cannot be any because it's not LA city jurisdiction, it's FAA jurisdiction. But LAPD wants to arrest you, so I don't quite understand. But again, if you go out and buy one of these devices, do it responsibly. It's a hobby. You could get injured. There was an airport in the Midwest that somebody decided to do a flyby to a real jetliner with one of these, and it is not cool. The whole community came down on that person. Because if one person makes a mistake, it's going to kill it for everybody else.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's like Phantoms out of the box. I've seen
it's out there, but have fun with it. Put on a GoPro, fly up on the beach or the desert or wherever, have fun. You can take amazing shots. Think about it. You can take amazing shots for really good cheap. Just be responsible about it. It's all me and the rest of the remote control aerial community asks.
So link to your GitHub, or do you have any kind of like?
Yeah, I'll send all links.
Yeah, you sent me your LinkedIn, but I guess the other one is get on the UUASC mailing list and
any
post your questions there, and Steve will come up
with OpenCV questions. Feel free to utilize. I think that does fall under the Linux. It is open source software. So any OpenCV questions, feel free to post on the UUASC list. I've been a member for 6 years now. I actually located to Los Angeles because of that damn list. I don't know if
you heard it here first.
But this is my third presentation for UUASC, and
thank you.
Don't have a problem. I'll come back again. And each time it's been a way different topic.
Yes.
And yes, it has.
You know, I ran into some people that work at LifeRay at a Python meetup a couple months ago. I said, we hosted a LifeRay meetup.
Yes, we did. Yes, sir.
Some of the police agencies are tasked by their leaders, in the case you're talking about, the city council, to be proactive, to get there before the council gets there when an issue like people being too amateur when some technology gets within their reach, to tell them not to be that amateur because the police are going to be looking over their shoulder. That's the stance that the LA City Council,
I understand.
the El Segundo City Council, City Council.
And I still agree. The problem is that those city councils do not have jurisdiction in the air.
They want to be proactive so that people don't get their heads cut
No,
off.
I get it. It just didn't make sense. LAPD stated we will arrest you, but I turned around and asked them, show me a law in the book. And they never answered.
That's what they'll do.
They'll arrest you on public endangerment or some sort of ordinance because you kind of are if you're flying it. There was a really close pull up in Van Nuys, Sepulveda Basin area. The dog got injured, ran into an airplane, not a helicopter, ran into a landing airplane. Didn't understand that there's a propeller that spins really fast in front of them. You know, dogs run after moving things.
Oh, yeah, like trying to bite the tire.
Yeah, trying to bite the front. Yeah.
Sad.
So respect the hobby. There's a bunch of flying fields in Los Angeles, we're big enough. There's a big rocket ship, if you're interested in rocket ships. They're way up in not, I think it's Rogers Lake, but I'm not sure. Not far. It's up in the San Bernardino National Forest.
Yeah, no, you can't fly those rocket ships.
But they fly all classes, I mean, everything up to 15,000 feet. That's the local for that. Sepulveda Basin is big on helicopters and airplanes. There's a bunch in Orange County.
There's I think there's at the end of Crenshaw, there's a hobbyist flying area.
It's possible. I don't know all of them. There's a bunch out there. Have fun. The open source world is moving into this, and it's going to be amazing over the next few years as it becomes better. Because all of the software that I spoke about tonight is open source. It doesn't cost you a penny. It'll take a lot of investment for time, a little bit of money, a lot of time to configure it properly for your specific vehicle. But once you have that, you're squared away. Right? Yes, sir.
Is there any collision avoidance in there to stop your helicopter from hitting my helicopter or flying birds?
Not unless they talk to each other. Again, nobody's implementing radar.
So it's also kind of a networking protocol as well at some point.
I helped out MIT a couple of months ago. We actually had 12 of these guys flying together using the same software, but they were pre-programmed on their flight path. In the second step, I did not help them. They did create a wireless link, so there was some sort of collision avoidance. But now you're talking, every vehicle up in the air has to be in the same frequency, which is probably what, 5.8 gigahertz, so they can talk to each other, because 5.8 works. It's decent range and it's freely available, and it's not going to interfere with anything else. How many frequencies can you carry? Even the big helicopter that I'm building is 7 feet. I have 2 different frequencies with 2 antennas that have to go at opposite ends of the vehicle so they don't step on each other. Now you're adding third frequency. It's not. We're starting to step over each other. And the next thing I'm going to touch it, I'm going to blow up. I'm blowing it up. So. Yes, sir.
Okay, the flight plan software. The flight plan comes out as some sort of ASCII file.
It's a text file, actually.
Text file. Then that gets uploaded into what software? The flight software in
the autopilot software.
And what's
Ardu Pilot. Ardu Pilot.
Ardu, okay.
And Ardu Pilot will work, and again, I stated this in the initial here. It'll work on a helicopter, fixed wing, and a rover. Rover is any land-based vehicle that has wheels. It's considered a rover. So everything except for whether I was floating, whatever they're called, it will not work on that. The guys that hovercraft. It will not work for a hovercraft that I know of. It's a whole different, because it's not necessarily 3-dimensional, but it doesn't quite follow terrain. It has some leniency, so it can be plus or minus. The autopilot. A-R-D-U-P-I-L-O-T. Arduino Pilot short is Ardu Pilot.
D-U-P?
Yes. Ardu Pilot. Or go to 3drobotics.com, and that's the company that sponsors it. They
3D what?
3D Robotics. Let's see if I can.
An Ardu Pilot.
Give me a second. I'll try to bring the 3D Robotics.
And then the tie-in between the camera and the 1.2 gigahertz radio link to the video feed, and then you do that's all.
The output from OpenCV into Arducopter. That's what I'm writing. That's the hard part. That's what DIYrobotics.com. There are people that are trying to solve this for a couple of years. I trying to figure out a way to do it. It's working for me.
I'm sorry, you do image recognition. If I don't want the image recognition, I just want to see where the camera is pointing because I want to do video, right?
Then you would use Mission Planner will tell you where the camera is pointing. Because wherever your helicopter is where you can point.
Okay. So it's something like they're using like a GoPro or something. Like, I don't even know how to get a video feed off there. I just found a video and then save it. And
It's called FPV.
it's called what?
First person video.
Oh, yeah.
We'll send you a live video link from the vehicle back to either your goggles or ground station, or real close proximity. You can send it over a Wi-Fi signal, but that turns into a Wi-Fi
The
station.
software's called.
The tools are FPV, first person video. They sell in packages, various prices, but this is the same Ardu pilot. It's called, works for Rover, but this is the company or the website for the piloting software that I use and help out with. And so in this future, this is the size between the center of those two propellers. But the same software again works in a fixed wing, it works in a car, it works in a single or a multi-copter. It's the same piloting software. The only difference is once you're in the air, 3 dimensions, when you're on the ground, it's not. So if you tell the piloting software that you're on a car, it disables the 3 dimensions. But it's still the same damn software.
Nice. To send the telemetry back, what was the mechanism for sending? So you gotta have something that collects the telemetry.
That's the software that I
Oh, this
displayed.
goes both ways.
It'll, yeah. You connect it to upload the flight plan, and then once you disconnect it, you have to set up the radio transmitter from the vehicle and receiver to your laptop, and it'll send back where it is, where it's heading, where it's been.
With the mission planning docs and documentation, and that's all part of the mission planner.
That stays, yeah, that stays. Well, there's going to be a copy on both, because otherwise the vehicle wouldn't know where to go. So he gets a copy of the flight plan.
But that telemetry coming back and the software to do that, that's all, I can look it up and that's.
That's all from this side. You can download it on the downloads. Go to downloads, you'll be able to download Mission Planner, download the piloting software, all that. From this, ArduPilot.com, sponsored by 3D Robotics.
And one last question, have you looked at ROS?
Yes.
Not Caltech.
Yes, I have. I've worked a little bit with it. I have issues with it that I'm not going to get into. It's not meant, I personally think it's not meant for this.
Oh.
I can get Arduino, but I can get Arduino to move my camera based on input from OpenCV. I haven't found a reason to use ROS for this project. ROS is better for if you want to move a hand 100 times in the same motion. Yeah.
Servos to
ROS cannot process the input from the GPS and various other input devices to fly a vehicle. There are people that are porting ROS into piloting software. Personally, I think they're going to abandon it because this is a lot better, and there's no reason to kind of reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
There's 4 decent open source piloting systems out there. In my opinion, this one is the best. And again, if you decide to go with this one, please support the company that sponsors this. They're called 3D Robotics, and their website is out here fairly decent. And they sell all of the boards that you want. They sell for this pretty much the same price as anybody else. Just if you want to use the open source, please support them. They have no affiliation with me at all. No kickbacks, nothing. They support the open source community a lot. That's all I'm asking. Fair?
Yeah, at least you said.
No, don't talk to them. They would know I am anyway.
Okay, well, hey, thank you very much, Steve. So we'll have some sort of presentation here next month on something. Actually, I want to do something on Bitcoin, and I talked to somebody, a Bitcoin miner, and maybe have a couple of different people talking about cryptocurrency stuff, which is interesting too. So hey, and then we're going to head over to Islands if you're interested in a few minutes. So thanks, and also thanks to Carolyn and the people at Q. Ben? Oh, yours?
Yeah, I'll break the wall. It's different, yeah.